just lighten up. Don't take things so seriously. Have fun, smile a little bit, and just remember to laugh. Like, we're here to laugh. We're here to make people laugh. We're here to smile. We're here to be, excited about life, to be happy. Once I was able to do that, it really helped change some things in my life.
It's time for the Share Recovery Podcast, where we bring you amazing life-changing success stories from addicts and alcoholics all over the world who share their inspiring journey in recovery. And now, here's your host,
On today's episode of the Share Podcast, we have a special guest, Shane Raymer, the host and founder of That Sober Guy podcast. Shane started experimenting with drugs and alcohol in high school, smoking weed and drinking alcohol. By the age of 19, he had graduated to cocaine and crystal meth. By the grace of God, Shane realized quickly that crystal meth was a powerful drug and abandoned it. However, his alcoholism took over and soon he was drinking every day, putting his life and his marriage in jeopardy. When he realized that he had completely lost control of his life, he asked his wife for help and willingly went to a 30-day rehab. It was there in rehab that he had the spiritual awakening that inspired him to help others. He decided to do service and hold himself accountable by producing the That Sober Guy podcast. Join us now as Shane takes us through his battle with alcoholism and drug abuse and his journey into recovery. You don't want to miss this episode. But first, a message from our sponsor. Sober Nation is the largest online recovery community and treatment resource center. They provide treatment resources to those struggling with addiction, as well as to the family members who are caught in the crossfire. On top of that, Sober Nation is a huge community of good people who share their experience with each other. They have informative content, recovery and addiction news, as well as an entire clothing line which helps expand the culture of recovery. They can easily be found at www.sobernation.com. Sober Nation is putting recovery on the map. I'd also like to mention that if you're interested in more than just one recovery-related podcast, you can also check out two of my buddies, Paul Churchill of the Recovery Elevator podcast and Shane Raymer of That Sober Guy podcast. So now, Mondays, Tuesdays, and Fridays, you can get up every morning and listen to a brand new recovery-related podcast on your way to work. What could be better than that? On Mondays, it's the Recovery Elevator podcast with Paul Churchill. Tuesday, it's me, O, with the Share podcast. And on Friday mornings, it's Shane Raymer with the That Sober Guy podcast. Tune in every week and add us to your recovery portfolio. HP, baby. And after this interview, if you enjoyed listening to the Share podcast, please leave us a rating and review on iTunes or Stitcher Radio. This will ensure we get ranked well on these networks, and that means more people will easily find the Share podcast. This is the best way to show your support and help us grow. You can also find the Share podcast on Facebook, Twitter, Google+, YouTube. Go to any one of your favorite social networks and type in the Share Podcast. Remember to spell share, S-H-A-I-R, and the Share Podcast will come right up. So make sure to follow us on all of your favorite social networks. And finally, if you would like to make a donation to the Share Podcast, you can do so using PayPal. The entire amount of your donation will go towards maintaining and growing the show. On the top right corner of the website, you'll see a donate button. Just click on it, and this will take you to the page where you can make your donation. By donating only $5 a month, you can help support, maintain, and grow the show. Thanks again for helping the Share Podcast become a huge success. Now back to the show. Hey, Shane, thanks for joining us.
Omar, what's up, man? How are you?
I'm awesome, man. How you feeling?
Man, I'm feeling great. It's a beautiful day to be alive.
It is, man. I always say HP, baby, because that's how we roll.
Oh, yeah.
All right, you ready to get started?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. Folks, today we have a special guest appearing on the Share Podcast, Shane Raymer, the host and the founder of That Sober Guy, a very popular recovery podcast on iTunes and Stitcher Radio. So let's dive right in. Shane, tell us about how your life is today. Take us into your normal daily routine, including recovery.
All right, Omar, thanks, man. Thanks for that nice introduction as well. So a normal day for me, let's see. Well, first of all, life is great today. Life really is great, and that's not to say that I don't have my struggles and I don't have my ups and downs. Because just because I'm sober doesn't mean all my problems and troubles go away. But the beautiful thing is that I I get to deal with them now, and I've learned how to deal with them. I have the tools to live a healthy mental as well as physical lifestyle. So that's something that I'm very proud of. As far as the day goes, you know, I don't mean to be graphic, but the first thing I do is I wake up and I take a shit, and I bring my computer in there, and I get down on it, and I sit there. It's like my office. Like my daughter will knock on the door and say, you know, Daddy, what do you? So where's my mom will say, where's Daddy at? Daughter will say, well, he's in his office, right? That's the only spot, you know, with the family, and you know, that's like my little time. So I definitely do that. I know as funny as it sounds, it is part of my routine. You know, I read a little bit. I'll kind of drink some coffee, get my day going, say a little prayer for the day, hit the gym on the certain days that I go to the gym, or I'll take a little walk in the morning and just kind of clear my head. You know, and then it's I guess that same daily routine. You're gonna go to work, spend some time with the family at night, and just really try to stay grateful. You know, just really try to stay in the moment.
What's your meeting routine look like?
You know, I actually do a Sunday morning, 8 a.m., that Sober Guide meeting, and I do it online or over the phone. You can call in or do it online. I am a big supporter of Alcoholics Anonymous, of Narcotics Anonymous, and you know, that really was and is kind of a cornerstone of my recovery. When I went to rehab, I was introduced to it. Actually, I was introduced to it before I went to rehab, and I just wasn't ready for it, I think, at the time, and I wasn't ready to get connected. I wasn't ready to get sober. But when I went to rehab, that part of it was, you know, we did meetings every night, meetings every on the weekends. Sorry, my dog was just going crazy barking. So, anyways,
I love it.
But yeah, you know, I try to stay connected through the big book, through my meetings, and of course through my podcast. Really, I get to interview a lot of interesting people and talk with a lot of people. I think it's really pretty solid, I would say.
And the Sunday morning meeting, is that AA based or NA based?
You know what? Here's what I say on this. I kind of based it off of the idea of Alcoholics Anonymous, because that's what I was taught.
Right.
But it has no affiliation with AA. It has no affiliation with NA. And I always say that at the beginning of the meeting. And it's not meant to be a replacement to AA or NA, because I think those are really the foundation for recovery. And I don't think that anything can really replace those two things. What I had in mind for it is a way for people to connect all over the world, you know, who maybe the stigma of Alcoholics Anonymous was keeping them back. Well, this is kind of a little door opening meeting, and something to add to that arsenal of weapons, you know, that maybe we already use, or maybe if somebody doesn't have any weapons that they're using to combat this, maybe this is something kind of like the podcast that'll open up the door. So it's not directly affiliated with either one.
I got you. And how much clean time do you have, and when is your anniversary date?
So, Omar, funny you should ask that, man. And it's crazy that we're doing the interview today, because I'm really close. God willing, next Friday on September the 11th, I will celebrate 2 years of being clean and sober.
HP, baby.
You know, and yeah, man, it's went by fast, you know. And at the same time, one thing I always like to say about this, about the time thing, is it is important to me, and I'm very proud of it, and it's something that I'm excited about. At the same time, I know that I'm one bad decision away from total fucking destruction.
Yes.
So no matter how much time I get clean, I always got to keep that conscious in my mind, you know, that like, look, yeah, I'm coming up on 2 years, but number one, I'm not there yet. And number two, if I don't stay connected and stay right with myself and with my support around me, you know, I could fuck it all up in a heartbeat. And so I like to stay conscious of that.
Absolutely. You know, it's funny you say that, because every once in a while I'll be with my mom or be with my wife, and I refer to myself as a drug addict. You know, I'll say, damn, you know, I'm just, you know, because sometimes I'll do something that's very obsessive or compulsive, or, you know, if I like something, I got to be all in, right? And so I'm like, damn, these are the kind of moments that remind me, I'm always going to be a drug addict. And they're like, no, you're not a drug addict anymore. You're recovered now. And I'm like, honey, I know that's how you feel and that's how you see me, and I'm grateful for that. I really am. I'm grateful that you don't know the man that I used to be. But if I forget, even for a minute, that I'm an addict, I'm in trouble. It took her a while for her to kind of grasp that idea, but she's been to enough meetings with me where I remember one day she came up to me, she goes, I get it.
Yeah, holy shit. But man, how many cats do you know? I'm sure you got a few of them that's right off the top of your head, just like me, that you've heard talk that say, man, I had 14 years, I had 20 something years, clean and sober, and one day I woke up and I just wanted to get fucked up, or they just made that. Who knows what it is? I don't know. It's unexplainable. So I've always had people say, like, just stay connected, to stay conscious of that.
Well, that's one of the reasons why she said, I get it. I've had friends of mine that, had more, I just celebrated 12 years, and I had friends of mine that had more time than me, went to a wedding, somebody accidentally served them a rum and Coke instead of a regular Coke, and the guy just made the call and he just drank it. It was just in that, there's that split second, that moment where you got, like for me, like as soon as I sense that there's alcohol in anything, like I'm spitting shit out, I'm making like a big deal about it. I'm like, whoa, shit. Oh, I want people to hear me, right? Because it's so powerful that if I just like quietly push it away, that's what almost like what it wants me to do. And he didn't do that. He drank the rum and Coke, and then a week later he went on a 4-day run where it was just blow and just disappearing and blowing all kinds of money, and you know what we do when we do it. Like there's a whole laundry list of shit we do when we go out. And it was like, I go, honey, I just want you to understand, I am very clear that I am one drink and I'm just an arm reach away from a drink or a drug. And you can see this, a guy got 14 years, one day made a decision that, changed his life forever.
That's that one, one's too many and 1,000's not enough, and it just, that it's like we don't understand the fact who buys a 18-pack of beer and doesn't drink them all. I never understood that. Like, he's like, I'm going to go have one beer. Like, why the fuck are you going to have one beer? What is the purpose of that? Because I don't drink it because it tastes good. I drink it because I want to get fucking hammered.
Yes.
And that's like the biggest thing that scares me and really keeps me in check, is that I know that one little slip, one little day where I'm not, conscious of what's going on could really destroy everything in my life, and I'm not willing to risk that.
No, not at all. You have to, that spiritual connection on a daily basis. We only have a daily reprieve. It's just for a day. It's just for today for a reason, because it's just for today. Tomorrow, I don't know what could be presented to me, and if I am not spiritually fit, then I could make that one split-second decision that could change my life forever, and I'm not willing to go there, man.
Yeah, I know, it's crazy, man.
Good stuff. So, speaking of which, let's go back a little bit. Tell me a little bit about the first time you drank or used drugs. How old were you? And more importantly, how they made you feel. Sure.
So, I thought about this. I think I talked about this not too long ago. To get technical real quick, because I just, it's amazing to me. My pops, man, he's an alcoholic, and he's not in recovery. He's still a practicing alcoholic. And I can remember just being a little kid, elementary school, I don't know, 2nd, 3rd grade. And I remember, he would get up sometimes and he would crack a beer in the middle of the night, drink half of it, leave it in the fridge. And I can remember going in there and opening the fridge up maybe in the morning when I was up and drinking some of it just to take. I didn't know what it did, but just to drink it because Dad drank it. And I knew that it was something that Dad did.
Right.
And I wanted to taste it, see what it was. Now, when I really understood what alcohol was and that it made you act funny, I think that was in the 6th grade, and One of my best friends, Seth Manter, he's been on the podcast, on my podcast a couple of times. Him and I, our friends were our parents were all friends, and they would do barbecues, on the weekends. And I can remember we used to sneak O'Douls, actually. They would have O'Douls there. I don't know who, some of them must have not been drinking at the time. Yeah, but we would sneak them into the back bedroom, and we thought we were all cool, and we'd fucking, shotgun them and drink them, and, we were partying, right? We didn't, are you feeling funny? Well, we didn't understand that O'Douls couldn't have alcohol. And so...
That's funny, man.
Sorry, my daughter just came out here. Bye, baby. I love you. All right. Sorry about that, man.
No worries. It's all good.
But, my little girl, she's such a little sweetheart, man. She's a little 5-year-old, just beautiful, man. But I couldn't ask for anything more special than that. But anyways, man, my apologies. So, yeah, we would get the, we'd sneak them in there and we'd drink them. And I think it was more of like a fun, social type of thing then. And it wasn't until I was about 14, maybe 15, that I actually started smoking weed, started smoking some pot. And I think the first time I got drunk, I was at a buddy's house. I was 15, and I drank a bottle of Bacardi Limon. And I remember my buddy Dan, his cousin Jason, he was older than us, and he was fucking with me, man. I was laying in the bathroom, and I was spinning, and I was sick as shit, and I was puking. And he was coming in there, and he was flipping the lights on and off, as fast as he could. And he was being a dick, and he was messing around with me. But that was the first time that I ever experienced just getting drunk and getting sick. As shitty as it was, I liked it. I liked the feeling of it because I didn't have to feel anything. I was just I was drunk, and it felt great. Other than, the hangover the next day, obviously, but I don't even know if I got a hangover at 15 the next day. I think you're pretty resilient at that age. You just kind of, eat some burritos and get on the way.
Well, and right after that happened, were you like, man, I'm never drinking again? Or did you even process that?
No, I think, I don't think that, I don't think I said I'm never drinking again, but it was just like a thing, if I can remember, it was just a thing. We had a good time. It's funny, I didn't really like alcohol even when I turned 21. I would drink here and there and stuff, but I was never the guy at the party who just got shit-faced, and other than that time when I was 15, but I was never that guy that just got completely hammered and got in fights or was an asshole to people, or I was pretty controlled, I guess, to a point where, at least I thought I had it under control. I drank sometimes, and of course I got drunk sometimes too, and had my moments. But it wasn't until when I turned 21, that I started drinking more, because obviously you can go to the bar and that kind of stuff too. But I think it was maybe even a little bit before that. When I was 19 or 20, I did cocaine for the first time, and I remember doing it and thinking, this is the only time I'm going to do this. I just want to try it once just to see, what it does. And I don't even really remember, the event of it, I guess, so much, other than being at a party. And I don't really remember if it didn't have any profound effect on me where I was immediately addicted to it or anything. But that kind of set the tone, I think, starting with the weed, and then, the drinking on the weekends and partying and that kind of thing. And then the cocaine kind of set the tone for opening these doors to try some other things.
It always does.
Yeah, and they say, I don't want to give the whole gateway drug BS, but anyways, that kind of opened the door. At the time, I was doing tile. I was setting tile with a couple of buddies out in Antioch, and we would show up early in the morning. It was piecework, so you had to bust your ass, because the more floor you're going to lay, the more tile you lay, the more money you're going to get paid. Well, the first day that we showed up there, our boss, he said, okay, it was track homes. He said, all right, well, you guys come in. This is what we're going to do today. He's kind of laying us out. And then I didn't have any idea what was really about to go down. He brings us into the back little bathroom area, and it's like, all right, here you go, line them up. And there was 3 or 4 just fat lines of crystal sitting there. And my homies were like, okay, let's get to work. I was the new guy, is what I'm saying on this. When this job started, I'd kind of been brought in as a helper. I was like, fuck it, let's do it. So from that day, that pretty much happened for a good probably 5-6 month period where it was just, and thank God I never smoked the shit, because I had friends who smoked it and it fucking destroyed their lives. And the best thing that could have happened to me in that instance was that I got fired from that job, because I don't know how, but I never did it again after that. I never went back to it. You know, the cocaine use and drinking and stuff continued. But anyways, man, I feel like I'm kind of getting off track a little bit. But, you know, in my 20s, the partying just continued. You know, it just continued. And, you know, I'm a musician too. So I had this idea that I was going to like be in this band or this group, and that's what I wanted to do for a living. And if you do that, then you gotta party like a motherfucker. That's what you do. You know, if you're a writer, you know, you play music, you travel, that's that lifestyle that I wanna live, you know, and I thought that's really who I was. And yes, I'm passionate about music, but I was in it for all the wrong reasons. I was in it to try to make, you know, money and to try to gain some fame and some notoriety and that kind of stuff. And it just it really wasn't working out. And all this time, you know, I'm working jobs. You know, I've always worked. I've always been able to hold a job and take care of myself. And, you know, I have my wife today, who we've been together for 13 years. She's rode this shit out with me. She's a soldier for that.
No doubt.
I'm kind of trying to just catch my bearings here. You know how when you tell your story, Omar, there's just so much shit that you want to get out? And there's so many things that you want to say, like, oh, what about this? What about that? Oh, well, that happened. And all these events that help shape, you know, to me sitting in this chair talking with you today. God, I wish, you know, maybe I'll write a book one day. I don't know. I don't know if my life's that interesting. But,
we all have a book inside of us, bro. We all have a Hollywood story inside of us. Yeah. No doubt.
Yeah, I guess you're right. Yeah, you're right, huh?
You know.
Let me jump to this. I want to save the any more of the war stories and all that shit, because I think all of us kind of can get the point.
Yeah, but at the same time, the show, or at least like this part, I hadn't segued yet. Like I asked you the first question, but I really did want to turn the show over to you. I want to ask you a little bit about before I unleashed you. I just wanted to know a little bit more about before we start talking about your journey into recovery. I wanted you to tell us a little bit about that Sober Guy podcast and how it came to be. But I do want you to tell us your story, all right? And I want some good ones. People like that shit, man. Sure. They like the Hollywood part of it. You know what I mean? Like nobody shows up to watch these, you know, the cocaine rock star movie stories, you know, like Blow, without fallout. You know what I mean? Like the fallout's what they want. But more importantly, I want to know about that Sober Guy podcast, how it came to be, and what inspired you to make this happen.
Yeah, sure, man. Sure. I'd love to share that, Omar. Like I said, I have a music background, a lot of studio time, a lot of time doing live sound and all that shit. So that kind of helped with starting the podcast itself, because I kind of already knew how to do that part of it. But let me backtrack a little bit going into rehab. So in September of 2013, I went into a 30-day recovery facility, Azure Acres, out here in Sebastopol, California, which is kind of the Greater Bay Area. You know, my disease had progressed so bad at that point that I would white knuckle it trying to drive past the exit to the liquor store and wouldn't be able to do it every day. I was getting a fifth of vodka and some orange juice or Red Bulls every single day, and I was drinking and driving around, and I was conducting my normal routine, but I was doing everything drunk, and I was waking up every single day saying that, you know, I'm not going to do this anymore. You know, I'm not going to get drunk. I'm tired of living this way. And by noon, you know, I would be right back doing the same thing. And I was starting to isolate myself, and I was starting to hide bottles around the house, and I was starting to be a bitter prick, like straight up. I was being a not a very attentive father, an even worse husband as far as attention-wise goes, because I was so wrapped up in myself. And I was a shitty employee, too, at the time, because I didn't give a fuck.
Of course.
And so that being said, that led up to me finally, you know, making the decision that, God, I can't take this anymore. Like, I literally cannot take it. And I finally just surrendered. And I went to my wife one day and I said, look, we did it over at the bar. We're the only other place we knew how to communicate at the time. And we sat there over, I think I ordered a double screwdriver, and I pretty much put it back in a drink. I started to kind of, choke up a little bit, and I just told her, I said, I need help. Like, this is what's been going down. Like, this is how I feel. I can't do this on my own. Like, I need help. And so that led me to going into Azure Acres, and I was sitting in there. I was a couple days in, and they have a comedian, Mark Lundholm, who comes around, and he's also a recovering heroin addict. And I think he's got, 25 years plus sober, and really turned his life around to going to speaking at treatment centers and doing comedy tours and all that kind of stuff. And so he comes once a month. So I'm in there for like the first 3 days, and I'm still just tripping out, like, what's going on? Why am I even here? Like, still trying to control it almost, Like, man, I could, I got this. Like, I don't know why I did this. Kind of having some regrets almost even. I left my wife, my daughter. So I'm sitting there, and Mark's doing his deal that he does. He works the room. He talks to all different people. He gets people talking and opening up, basically. It's like a big session of group therapy.
Right.
And I'm sitting there, and I don't know what hits me, but this jolt of energy is the only way I could describe it. I don't know if it was God. I don't know what it was, but it just told me, like, you're going to do this one day. Like, this is what you're going to do. And I know it was so crazy, man. And I knew at that point that it didn't mean that, like, I was going to, like, be a comedian. I'm not that fucking funny. And I'm not going to necessarily go around to, different treatment centers, but what it told me is just, like, you're going to help people. That's why you're here. Like, you're experiencing this right now because your purpose in this life is to share this experience, later on down the road or whenever it comes up, and to help other people. And so I always kind of kept that in the back of my mind. And, I went through the whole treatment process, 30 days in there, and I got a lot of tools to help deal with these, feelings. And I always like to say that too real quick is that, alcohol, drugs, all that, at first I blamed all my issues on that. It's all the drugs, it's all the alcohol. But in reality, that's not really the case with a lot of us. It's the fact that we don't know how to deal with life. We don't know how to deal, with the things that happened to us in the past or that are happening to us in the present. And we don't have the tools. We're not born with the tools to communicate and with the tools to deal with these types of things. Life is hard. And when we're not eligible to, or educated enough to deal with them on a healthy manner, many of us turn to alcohol and drugs. And that's what I did. And so when I kind of figured that part of it out, which came a bit later on, even after I think I started the podcast, that was really a huge turning point for me, because it allowed me to accept the fact that alcohol is going to be there and it's going to be around. And doesn't mean I'm going to put myself in dumb situations by any means. But what it means is that it's up to me to take self-responsibility and know that I'm the problem. Ultimately.
Yes, absolutely.
It's not just the alcohol. So anyways, I go back to work on this night shift that I hate, and that, had, like I said, I had been drinking every night, every day and whatever. So I had to go back to my job eventually, and so what I decided at that moment was that, what, I don't want to be here right now, but I'm grateful to have a job, and I'm going to use this time. It's a pretty robotic job. It's in the, sorting mail pretty much. So it's just 8 hours of the same thing over and over. And so I said, I'm going to use this time to educate myself. That's what I'm going to do right now, about recovery, about living positively, about politics, a little bit of sports in there. Got to switch it up a little bit. And so I found the New Man podcast with Trip Lanier one night, and I listened to this episode with this big wave surfer, and damn, I can't think of his name right now. What was his name?
There's a few of
Greg
them.
Long.
Okay.
Yeah, Greg Long, and he shared this story of drowning, out on Cortez Bank down in Southern California, in that area of the ocean, and they were out there surfing, and he basically died, and then they brought him back, and he lived, and he shared this story, and it was so inspiring to me that at the time it had touched me. And I don't know, this idea just came up. Like, I remembered back about that feeling that I felt in recovery when Mark was speaking, that I was going to help people. And I thought, that's it. I'm going to start a podcast. I don't really know much about it, but I'm going to figure it out, and I'm just going to do it. And so it probably took me about a month to kind of get everything together and get a website. And I had to do I had to do a lot of homework on how to, do iTunes and all that kind of stuff.
It's a lot of work.
Content. Yeah, it really is. But what it did is it helped keep me busy. And what it also did and has done is it's helped to show me that, things take time, and they take patience, and they take hard work. If you enjoy doing it and it's something that you're really offering up to help other people and you're genuine about it, it can really be a good tool used in recovery. And the only reason I say it doesn't have to be a podcast for the people out there listening. You can find something that you really enjoy to do and really put your heart into it. And, we found a lot of time and we found a lot of ways to go get fucked up. So why don't we take that same effort and find that time and find that energy to put into doing something positive? And if we can do that, we can really live our recovery to the fullest extent.
Absolutely, man. I could take so many nuggets out of everything you just said, and I can relate to so much of it. I had 2 weeks clean when I was at the Florida Regional Convention of Narcotics Anonymous with my sponsor, and the keynote speaker was a guy named Usman D, and he was hysterical. I mean, it was the most funny delivery about recovery. And I remember when he was giving that delivery at 2 weeks, and I said that same thing, man. I go, that's gonna be me. That's gonna be me up there, because he had 10 years at the time. Yeah. And so then he's got to have 22 years now. He had 10 years at the time, and I remember going, 10 years from now, that's going to be me up there sharing my experience, strength, and hope. And I've always been a clown and an entertainer, and it's always been a part of who I am, my personality. And as far as jumping in both feet into using that same energy used to find ways and means to get more, to use, to get drunk, to lie, to scheme. You use that same energy to find recovery. And like you and I both know, building, starting, and launching a podcast takes a lot of time, a lot of research. Yeah. And it does. If you're dedicated to it, that's time you could have been spent out fucking up your life. Yep,
that's so true, man. It is. And that's crazy, man. So you have the same kind of experience, huh?
Absolutely. I was so inspired, and I had just relapsed. I had just come back from a relapse, so I was beaten down, and I heard this unbelievable story, and I actually have it. I actually found one of his old recordings, and it's number 16 on my list of downloads. So, it says it's Usman D, NA speaker, but I was so inspired that when I launched this podcast, I go, I'm going to find one of his, because he's a circuit speaker. I know I can find one of his out there, and I'm going to put it up on my show, and I did. It got a lot of downloads too. It was, people were like, I loved it. But yeah, man, I always knew that I had you recently had one of your podcasts was about, do you know what your purpose is? Have you thought about have you asked yourself that question of why am I here? And in early recovery, man, that's a huge question, bro. That's huge. Yeah, you're just trying to hold on by a thread. And so it's awesome that you were able to find that so early in recovery. And so now you put in all that work, and so you finally launched the podcast, right? In when was it?
I did. So I launched the podcast in April of 2014. So it's just about a year and a half ago. And since then, man, I've made some great friends and some good connections with people in recovery. I also started the meetings. I think we spoke a little bit about that in the first part of the show. I do a Sunday morning live online meeting, and it's at 8 o'clock a.m. Pacific time. And you just go to thatsoberguy.com, and you can click on the live meetings tab and register there. And it's cool, man. It's really I based it on just being, number one, using technology for the people who maybe are too scared to go out into their communities to an AA meeting, or maybe for the people that have heard bad things about AA or NA. You know, that stigma. There's still a stigma there with it, you know, of stale coffee and cigarettes and depressing stories. You know, I hear people ask me that sometimes. And I mean, yeah, you're going to get some of that, but ultimately that, you know, the program works, and there's thousands, hundreds of thousands of people who are living positive lives right now because of the rooms of AA and NA. So I kind of took that basis for my meetings, not as a replacement to AA or NA, but just as another tool to kind of open lines of communication up. I think that's one thing that many of us struggle with, is communicating. You know, whether it's our own insecurities or whether it's the way that we were raised. You know, like for instance, in my household, we didn't communicate. There was either yelling or you shut the fuck up, and that was it. Like, you didn't have an opinion. You know, that was that. And so that's just what I learned. I learned to kind of clam up and only take care of myself. And what that did is it locked me in kind of my own prison, because I didn't trust anybody. I didn't want to step out of my box. I was insecure to speak up, to speak out on. You know, when I was drunk or when I was high, I didn't give a shit about any of that. I would tell you, you know, what I thought right to your face, and I didn't care, because I had that liquor courage. You know, I was feeling good. And so that was my tool to find out. But it wasn't really until I got clean, until I got sober, that I honestly found out who Shane Raymer is, you know, and who am I?
Right.
You know, I'm a good human being these days. You know, I'm a productive member of society. You know, I'm a good father. I'm a good husband. You know, I do the best that I can. That's really important to me. Just trying to do, and trust me, I'm not saying I'm perfect by any means. You know, I have my days where I do dumb shit and I say dumb things sometimes. And I even ask myself, like, what's wrong with you? Why would you just, you know, do that or whatever? But it happens, you know, and that's part of that. My recovery is learning that that's okay, because back in the day, I would have beat myself to all hell if I did the littlest thing wrong. You know, it was all on me, and I just wore it. I would wear it for weeks. Yep. You know, and that really beats somebody down over a course of time. And so now, you know, I realize, like, look, I'm going to make mistakes. I'm not perfect. And the important thing is I'm learning from these mistakes, and I'm able to move on from them and hopefully not make them again, you know, later on down the road.
I love it. So let's dive in now that we've got an idea of where the podcast came from, what inspired you, what difference it's made in your life, which has been so impactful. And by the way, folks, I'm going to have all this listed on the show notes. You know, that Sober Guy podcast website, how to get to the podcast, how to get to the live meeting, all that'll be on the show notes, so you can check that out. But now I want to, you know, you don't have to go all, you know, like you were saying earlier, like there's so much you want to say, but there's a story in there. There's a story that led you up to start this podcast. There is the battle that you face against drugs and alcohol, the wreckage it caused in your life. You just mentioned your wife and your daughter. You know, I don't know how many kids you got.
So I have two. I have my daughter, she's 5, Lucy, and then my son Cash. He's 13 months, 14 months. Yeah, he's just a little over 1.
Beautiful.
Two young ones, man. Yeah. Beautiful,
which is great, because, you know, so much of this disease really affects, you know, children and our children. And for some of us, like for me, you know, my daughter's 12 years old and I'm 12 years clean. So she's never had to see that part of me. Wow. Your kids never have to see that part of you. But I know your wife did. If she was with you for 13 years, you know, you put her through a living hell. So tell us your story, man. Tell us that battle against drugs and alcohol, how it affected your life, those that the ones that you love the most around you, when you finally hit that rock bottom, and how you found recovery. So Shane, take it away, buddy.
Sure. Thanks, Omar. Yeah, high school, I'll kind of start, I already kind of mentioned, you know, the stealing beers in the 6th grade and running back and drinking them. And then as high school, you know, as I got a little bit older, it's a social thing. I mean, you know, you're in high school and you start experimenting. Not everybody, but a lot of kids do. That's what I saw growing up. And one thing I always like to say about my parents were young when they had me. My mom was 17, my dad was 18. And so I could only imagine, like, what these two kids are going through in the 80s. I was born in 1981. The early 80s, they're, 17, 18 years old without a clue what the fuck is going on with life in general. I mean, they're just kids themselves. And, here they have this baby boy all of a sudden, I wasn't planned. And, they have always loved me is what I'm getting at. I couldn't spit it out today, Junior. They've always loved me. And, no matter what, we had a rough time growing up, a lot of domestic disputes, a lot of cops at the house often. And we just, like I was saying earlier, my family just did not know how to communicate whatsoever. And then when you get drugs and alcohol involved in that environment, the marriage was just really, really bad on between my mom and dad. And it was very unhealthy. It was very, very unhealthy. And I have a younger sister too, and usually her and I were caught in the middle of it. We were caught in the middle of this dysfunctional kind of family.
Right. And
there's many families out there that are like that, or that people have experienced growing up like that. And,
mine was like that.
Thank God. Yes, I mean, and I'm sure that you too have talked to. That's how we relate to each other. A lot of us too. That's how we help each other, because a lot of us have been through the same types of situations as kids. And what I was kind of getting at though is, through all of that, my parents love me. No matter how bad of an alcoholic and addict my dad is, that's a whole other issue in itself. But I know he loves me, and I love him. He's my father. But at the same time, I can't allow myself, I have to set boundaries, in other words, with that situation. And growing up, I played baseball. My parents never missed a game, but my dad was the guy in the outfield with the ice chest full of beer, getting drunk, fucking rooting us on and talking shit to the umpires. I mean, that was him, and I hated it, when I was growing up, but I loved baseball. And so it's kind of funny because my wife's like, well, why are you making excuses? And it's like, I'm not making excuses, but I point out the fact that there's a lot of kids out there who weren't loved. I can't imagine what that would be like as a kid, to not be loved by somebody, by your parent, or by anybody at that. And at least I had that. And so I think the lesson that I've taught myself, or that I've learned from other experiences, is I can always try to find the good in a situation. So no matter how shitty things were, growing up or whatever, there's got to be some good that comes out of it. And part of it is realizing that, I was loved. And the other part of it is the fact that now, like you were saying, I don't have to have my kids see me like that. And I'm not passing that down to my kids, this dysfunctional family that I grew up in. They don't have to see that. And so there was a reason that I went through that stuff, as a kid, and it was to end that cycle. So as I got into my 20s, I mentioned earlier, I started messing around with a little bit of harder drugs, ecstasy, cocaine. Talked about the crystal methamphetamine, doing work, trying to get work done, that type of stuff. And then the drinking just kind of slowly progressed, I guess. Everything revolved around drinking, everything, whether it was my daughter's first birthday party, or whether it was going camping, or whether it was just sitting around watching the game and barbecuing. Like, literally, I didn't do anything without having beer. And I wouldn't go anywhere that didn't have booze, because that would be boring. Like, why would I want to do that? Why would I want to do anything? And the other part of that, too, was the fact that, my wife and I, we really only knew how to communicate while we were at the bar, or while we were out drinking and partying. And that was sad. That's sad when I look back on it now. And it was what it was, I guess. So after a rough day, we'd go to dinner, or go out, and then once we loosened up and had a few drinks, then we could talk. And that's really just not a very healthy way to have a marriage. We've known each other a long time. And thankfully today, we are able to communicate healthy and love each other. We've always loved each other, I think, genuinely, of course. But this disease progressed so fast on me. It progressed so fast. Like, I thought I had it under control for years. That's all anyone. That's all of us do. We party. That's what we do. I had a rough day. Today. I'm gonna have a drink. damn, I had a great fucking day today. I just got promoted. Let's drink. You know, it didn't matter what the circumstance was. We're going to drink, right?
Right.
So that just led, like, it literally in about 6 months, it literally just grabbed me by the balls and just took a hold of everything. Where, like I was saying earlier, I was white knuckling it, trying to tell myself I wasn't going to pull out to the liquor store and drink that day. And I couldn't help it. You know, I couldn't help it at all.
The car would drive itself.
I guess so, man. It would, man. It was like autopilot. It was like autopilot, man. It's just all sense of like of common sense just is out the window, you know. And I don't know how I didn't kill anybody, and I don't know how I didn't. You know, I never had a DUI. I never ever had a DUI. And I was talking about this on this morning's meeting. Is I like to think of myself as that example who, you know, you don't have to go to jail or go to prison or get 6 DUIs or, you know, get a divorce or lose all your friends, lose your job. You don't have to do all that to realize that you have a problem with alcohol or with drugs or any of that. You know, I'm a good example of that. Thank God, for some reason, I never did any of those. There was plenty of opportunities that I should have, but I never did. And so many of my friends are gone. They died. You know, they're gone now. Their families are hurt. They're destroyed by this, you know, by drugs, by alcohol. Some of them are in prison, you know, and it's sad to me that happens, but it really is, I guess, a numbers thing. And thank God I'm one of the ones who got a second chance. And so I really think about my friends that have passed away and that my friends that are hurt, that are locked up or that are not doing well. That really helps to drive me to really take advantage of every opportunity that I have in my life, my family, you know, my friends, my job, this podcast, you know, all of that kind of stuff. It's so important to me. But yeah, as it progressed, like I already talked about, I went to a 30-day rehab. I'm so grateful that I was able to get that opportunity and to come to some sense and say, look, I've had enough of this. This hurts too bad. I can't take it anymore. And I'm really willing to show some humility and throw my hands up and say, I give in. Like, I'm going to submit. I'm going to surrender to this, and I'm going to do whatever it takes to get sober. And I did. And today, man, my life is great. It really is. I have a beautiful baby girl, Lucy. She's 5, and I call her big girl. She's getting big now. She just started kindergarten, and she'll always be my baby girl, though. And you know, I have a beautiful wife who she supported me through this whole ordeal and continues to do so. And then my son. The funny thing about my son is we had tried to have another baby. We wanted one before I got sober, and I was still being a dumbass. And we couldn't get pregnant. Or my wife couldn't get pregnant, and she finally did get pregnant, and then she had a miscarriage. And shortly after that is when I went into recovery, and I'm not exaggerating when I say it must have been the day I got home from treatment. She got pregnant because we had my son like damn near 9 months to the day.
Oh my God!
Yeah, so it's so crazy because I look back and I'm like, God was telling me, like, look, you're not ready to be a dad to a boy yet, and I wasn't at the time. I used to hope that my daughter was a girl when my wife was pregnant because I was so scared to raise a boy. I didn't know that I could do it. I didn't think that, like, it was so hard to raise a man. I didn't feel like a man myself. How the hell am I going to raise this boy? And you know, God was right in that, you know. So the timing couldn't have been at a better time. And, you know, now I got the podcast, and I stay real busy with that. And I have some other things going on with the meetings, and I play a little golf here and there. Not very good, but still a good time. And yeah, man, it's crazy, man. And I'm just grateful. I really try to live in the moment, and I try to do that gratitude list, because any of us can sit and bitch about what we don't have, and we're not where we want to be, and all that's irrelevant because there's so many good things that are sitting right in front of us, and it can all be taken away in the blink of an eye, you know. And we really need to stay conscious of the fact that we're some grateful folks out there, you know, who have a lot to be thankful about.
No question about it. I love it, man. And I absolutely love your story, Shane. Seriously. Like, there's so much of it that I can relate to. Like I've already shared before, there's a lot of moments in your recovery that I was like, I know exactly what you're talking about. I can totally feel you, and that whole connection with your family. That's the most important thing that we have. At least for me, the thing that saved my life, the last thing I was about to lose after losing everything else was my daughter. And I just wasn't prepared to do it, man. And God stepped in, just like for you, you know. It was like you weren't ready, and I believe that God doesn't give us anything any more than we can handle. And if we're not ready, it's just not going to appear. It's not going to come into our lives, you know. So, man, I love it. Thank you so much for sharing your experience, strength, and hope with us. And
thanks, Omar, for giving me the opportunity to, man. I really appreciate it.
Oh, I love it. And what I want to do now is I want to close up, but I want to close up for the newcomer like we always do. So I'm going to ask you 5 questions about your early recovery, and I want you to respond with some inspiring and insightful answers you can share with our newcomers. Are you ready?
Let's do it.
All right, let's do this. Number 1, what was keeping you from getting clean or staying clean when you first got introduced to recovery?
Myself. I like to say my only enemy is me, and I'm the only one who stopped myself from allowing myself to get the help that I needed. And whether it was past experiences or whether it was just making excuses, ultimately when I stood up and I took self-responsibility and I was honest with myself and I said, look, here's the situation. That's really when I was able to kind of move forward and really reach out and admit. That admittance is huge, and it's so relieving. And I remember the day I said, I need help, I'm an alcoholic. It was like this, I don't know what it is, but it was lifted off of my chest.
The weight.
And so, yeah.
It's that huge weight. You have these boulders that we carry around with us, you know, and you mentioned, you alluded to it before about, you know, every time you did something wrong, you would just beat yourself up over it, you know, and it's that ass kicking machine, you know, and these are tools that we learn when we get into recovery that, you know, we're also defenseless about how we cope with the mistakes that we make. It's not just about the mistakes we make, it's how we deal with those mistakes and how we punish ourselves after the fact. If we don't have healthy coping skills, that will hinder our growth as well. So, man, that's it. It's me. You know, what was preventing me from getting clean? Me.
yeah, that's it. It's simple. It is, man. It is.
And number 2, at what point did you have a spiritual awakening, that aha moment in recovery when you accepted that you were powerless over drugs and alcohol, but for the first time had developed that hope that you could recover?
Well, I think I already alluded to it about the Mark Lundholm experience when I heard him talking. I think that was really the first point when I realized that like there was a reason that I was here, and there was a reason that I'm supposed to get help and I'm supposed to get clean and sober, and it was really regardless of what anyone else thought. That was kind of a hard thing too, because we all care about what our family and our friends think, and you know, at the same time, we gotta let that go if we really want to get the help that we need, because that's what it's about, is doing everything and willing to give up everything in order to get clean, to get sober, and to live a better life. So I think that moment when I kind of heard that voice say, this is what you're going to do, you know, you're here to help people. I think that was the moment when I knew that there was hope and that there was at least a purpose for me to be there.
Absolutely, man. Yep. And I, again, like you, when you were telling that story, I was right there with you, man. And I'm just remembering so many moments in my recovery where it became so crystal clear to me that, you know, my purpose here is to carry the message, period. That's it. That's what I'm here to do.
You're so right, man. Yep.
Absolutely. Now, Shane, do you have a favorite book that you would recommend to a newcomer that you read in early recovery?
Yeah, I actually I had touched on it in early recovery, but I was too lazy, I guess, to really get into it. So not too long ago, a few months back. But The Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz.
Yes.
That's one of the best one of the best things that I've really read, and just the Four Agreements. Being impeccable with your word, not making assumptions, personal responsibility, and then always doing your best. If you can really take those and practice those, and kind of try your best. I try my best to live by those on a daily. It really does help to free you from some of the, I don't know, I guess, change that we feel that we're kind of bounded by some days and some weeks and some months. Some last longer than others. But yeah, the Four Agreements, and then one more. Actually, I have two, and then of course the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous or Narcotics Anonymous. That has some of the best literature and some of the best teachings that I've heard.
No question about it. Absolutely. And The Four Agreements is a book that was given to me probably, I don't know, maybe 7 years ago by a friend. She knew that I was in recovery. When she read it, she thought about me. It's a global book because anybody can get the message here. Most of the time when I read something that impacts me, I'm like, wow, I can extract all the recovery related material out of it. It's almost like automatic. So it is a great book, and it's only been, I think this is the first time it's been recommended or brought up, but it is a wonderful book that accompanies wonderfully the basic text of Narcotics Anonymous and the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. I love it.
Yes.
For sure. So, Shane, what is the best suggestion you have ever received?
The best suggestion, I think there's been quite a few that I've received that have been good that I've used, but one of them would probably be just to lighten up. Don't take things so seriously. Have fun, smile a little bit, laugh. But I think that for the longest time, everything was always so serious with me that it really did kind of hinder my growth, because that goes back to that getting down on myself, being hard on myself. So I think once I kind of realized that, I asked myself, is it really that big of a deal to stress out about this? What am I going to do about it? And that kind of tends to help me calm down and just remember to laugh. We're here to laugh. We're here to make people laugh. We're here to smile. We're here to be, excited about life, to be happy. Once I was able to do that really, it really helped change some things in my life.
You ever heard of Rule 62?
I haven't.
Rule 62, it's old school, man. I heard about it only because of the podcast. And it's Rule 62. Don't take yourself so damn seriously.
I love it, man. Yeah, you're right. Rule 62, man. I love it. Yeah, just don't take shit so seriously. Is it really that big a deal, God, that's so true.
I think that was back from a New Pair of Glasses time. I think it might have been Chuck C. I remember somebody had mentioned that in the podcast. I'm like, Rule 62. He's like, Google it, man. Don't take yourself so damn seriously. A buddy of mine actually made bumper stickers with that. So I actually have that on my car. It's the only bumper sticker I have because I fucking hate bumper stickers.
I know. How about the car when you drive the guy? He's got 18 fucking political stickers all over the back of his car. I just want to flip them off every time I've got them. Fuck you! You don't know what the fuck you're talking about, you asshole. It's always the same looking person. It's always some piece of shit car too.
It's always, and that's why he's got all the bumper stickers. He's covering all the bullet holes.
It's comedy. Holy crap! Yeah, it's so true, man.
All right. And if you could give a newcomer only one suggestion, what would it be?
Progress, not perfection. I know it's kind of cliche. We hear it a lot. I hear it a lot. Sometimes I get tired of hearing it. I just want to say shut up. But at the same time, it's so true. We got to take it one day at a time and just make a little bit of progress. We're not going to be perfect. I'm by far, far from perfect. I still do dumb things. I still say dumb stuff. I still don't make, the perfect decisions, and I never will. But as long as I'm working towards, being a better person and just being myself, really being honest with myself. And I'm making a little bit. I try to learn something every day. If I can learn just one little thing a day, over a lifetime, that's going to benefit, me, my family, my friends, the work that I do, all of that. So just trying to take a little bit at a time, not trying to be perfect, just trying to make some progress.
That's right, man. Easy does it. Progress, not perfection. I love it. All right, brother. Well, we have now reached the end of our show. Thanks for joining us. And as we say here in Costa Rica, pura vida.
Pura vida. Thanks, Omar.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining us on the Share Recovery Podcast. To check out the show notes page on this interview or to thank our guests for sharing their story, go to www.thesharepodcast.com. While you're on the website, don't forget to sign up for our free newsletter to stay up to date on the latest news, podcasts, and interviews. Want to be one of our guests and share your story? Then go to our website and click on the Share Your Story button. We share our inspiring recovery stories every Tuesday, so subscribe to our show on iTunes or Stitcher Radio to get your free weekly download. We'll see you then. The opinions shared on this show reflect those of the individual speaker and not of any 12-Step Fellowship as a whole. And though we discuss 12-Step recovery and the impact it had in our lives, we do not promote or endorse any 12-Step Anonymous program.